You won't believe what this CEO saw. Tech executive discovers his housekeeper selling flowers on the street after work. What he did left her speechless. Have you ever seen someone work so hard that it makes you question your own life? Imagine this. A powerful man leaves a business meeting and discovers something he was never meant to see. His housekeeper, that woman who cleans his home every day with a quiet smile, is standing in front of a street flower cart selling roses under the dim light of a street lamp. She's still wearing part of her uniform hidden under a worn coat. Her hands tremble from exhaustion as she wraps bouquets for strangers. He stands frozen. What will he do when he discovers the truth behind that second life? Stay until the end, because what this CEO decided to do changed everything forever. Marcus walked through the hallways of his penthouse in downtown Chicago every morning with the same mechanical routine as always. 45 years old, divorced for nearly a decade, he had built a technology empire that many envied, but that seemed increasingly empty to him. The glass walls reflected his solitary image as he reviewed documents on his tablet before breakfast. Nobody waited for him at the table. Nobody asked how he had slept. Only the relentless silence of a space too large for a man who had forgotten what it meant to live and not just exist. Work had become his refuge and his prison at the same time. Endless meetings, million-dollar contracts, negotiations that lasted until dawn, all to avoid thinking about what he had lost when his marriage fell apart in that bitter divorce. All to avoid feeling the crushing weight of loneliness that followed him like a shadow, even in the middle of offices full of people. Marcus had learned to smile in public while his heart remained frozen in time. That was his world until he began to notice something strange about Claire. Claire had worked in his home for almost 3 years. 38 years old, thin but strong, she always arrived punctually at 6 in the morning to begin her duties. She cleaned every corner of the penthouse with a dedication that Marcus had rarely seen in other employees. What caught his attention most was her attitude. Always polite, always with a kind smile when she greeted him. Always discreet, as if she wanted to be invisible. She never asked for anything extra, never complained, never arrived late. But there was something in her eyes that Marcus couldn't decipher. A sadness hidden behind that constant smile, a deep fatigue that no night of sleep seemed to cure. He watched her sometimes from a distance while she mopped the floor or prepared coffee in the kitchen. Her movements were slow, as if each gesture cost her a titanic effort. Her shoulders seemed to carry an invisible weight that bent her slightly forward. Marcus wondered what stories that silent woman kept, who never spoke about her personal life. For weeks, Marcus began to pay more attention to the details. Claire arrived every morning with deep dark circles that makeup couldn't quite hide. Her hands trembled slightly when she served coffee. Sometimes he heard her yawn in the hallway when she thought no one was watching. One morning, while she was cleaning the living room, Marcus noticed she almost tripped over the vacuum cleaner. He approached quickly to hold her by the arm. "Are you all right, Claire?" he asked with genuine concern. She straightened up immediately, forcing that polite smile she always had ready. "Yes, Mr. Marcus, just a bit tired, excuse me." But her eyes told another story. A story of sleepless nights and endless days. Marcus wanted to ask more, but Claire had already moved away, returning to her tasks with that discretion that characterized her. Something inside him stirred uncomfortably. When was the last time he asked someone if they were really okay? When did he stop seeing people as people and start seeing them only as part of the decor of his automated life? The days passed and Marcus's unease grew. He watched as Claire refused the lunch he offered, saying she'd already eaten, but he never saw her eat anything. He noticed how she carefully saved the leftovers from the kitchen, wrapping them as if they were treasures. One afternoon, while signing some documents in his study, he heard her talking on the phone in a low voice from the hallway. "Mom, I'm coming there now. Yes, I bought the medicines. Don't worry, there's enough. The kids ate well, right?" Her voice sounded tired but full of tenderness. Marcus felt a pang in his chest. Claire had a family that depended on her, a mother, siblings, responsibilities that she carried alone while cleaning other people's homes with a smile that hid daily battles. Suddenly, his immense penthouse seemed emptier than ever. He had all the money in the world, but no one waiting for him at home. She had nothing, but gave everything for her own. Who was really rich between the two? The question haunted him for days without finding an answer. One Tuesday night, Marcus left a meeting in the Loop around 10:30 at night. The meeting had been long and tedious, full of investors who only talked about numbers and percentages. He drove his SUV down Michigan Avenue toward his home when he decided to take a different route. He wasn't in a hurry to get to that empty penthouse. He turned down streets he normally avoided, humbler areas of the city he rarely visited. That's when he saw something that made him break hard. 2 blocks away, under the yellowish light of a street lamp on a small corner, there was a flower cart. And in front of that cart, attending to a customer with mechanical movements of pure exhaustion, was Claire. She wore a stained apron over what appeared to be part of her work uniform, her hair hastily pulled back. Her eyes looked down as she arranged roses in a bouquet. Marcus felt as if the air was escaping from his lungs. He stood paralyzed inside his SUV, observing a scene he never imagined witnessing. How many hours had she been working non-stop since she left his home? Marcus turned off the engine of his SUV and sat in the darkness, unable to process what his eyes were seeing. Claire was there a few meters away, in a completely different world from his downtown Chicago penthouse. The corner was simple, surrounded by small family businesses that were already closing their metal shutters. Some street vendors were packing their merchandise into rickety carts. Claire's flower cart was modest. A folding table covered with a plastic cloth, buckets with roses, carnations, daisies, and lilies, handmade bouquets wrapped in colored paper. Nothing luxurious, nothing pretentious. Just what was necessary to earn a few extra dollars after a full day of work. Marcus observed every detail with a mixture of amazement and shame. While he complained about traffic in his luxury SUV, she crossed half the city to reach that forgotten corner and work until midnight. While he dined in expensive restaurants with business partners, she sold flowers to strangers who might not even thank her. The scene before him was a brutal mirror of realities that lived in the same country but in parallel universes. From his position, Marcus could see Claire's face under the dim light of the street lamp. She no longer wore that polite smile she showed at the penthouse. Her expression was one of pure exhaustion, shoulders fallen, eyes half closed from tiredness, hands that trembled slightly as she trimmed stems and arranged fresh flowers. A man in a business suit approached the cart and ordered a dozen red roses. Claire nodded without saying much, prepared the order with automatic movements, and received some bills that she tucked into a cloth bag tied to her waist. The customer left without looking her in the eyes. For him, Claire was just another street vendor, one of thousands who populated Chicago's streets. But for Marcus, she was the woman who entered his home every morning with dignity and worked tirelessly to support a family he didn't even know existed. A family that depended on those nighttime flowers to survive. A family waiting somewhere in that immense city while she sacrificed her health and sleep for a few dollars that would never be enough. Marcus wanted to get out of the SUV, approach, say something, but he remained paralyzed. What could he say? What right did he have to invade that space where Claire fought for her life? He felt like an intruder observing something too intimate, too painful. He remembered all the mornings she arrived at his home exhausted, and he barely gave her a distracted greeting before leaving for his meetings. He remembered all the times he saw her cleaning the floor while he walked on that same floor without even noticing her presence. He had treated her with respect, yes, but with that distant respect given to someone who only exists to do a job. He had never asked about her family, never asked if she needed anything, never asked if she was okay. He had simply assumed she was fine because she always smiled. How easy it was to live in his crystal bubble, where problems were solved with money and people were just names on a payroll. How comfortable it was not to see the suffering that existed inches away. The shame hit him so hard he had to close his eyes for a moment. 15 minutes passed, then 30. Marcus was still there watching. Claire attended 4 more customers. A young couple who laughed as they chose flowers, an elderly man who seemed to know her because he asked about her mom, 2 teenagers who complained about the price of the roses, and Claire just looked down without responding. Around 11:30 at night, the corner was almost empty. Claire began to pack her things with the same meticulousness with which she cleaned the penthouse. She stored the remaining flowers in water buckets, cleaned the table with an old cloth, folded the plastic tablecloth, and put it in a worn bag. Her movements were slow, as if each gesture cost her the last breath of energy she had left. Marcus noticed she stopped for a moment, leaned on the table with both hands and took a deep breath. Then she wiped her forehead with the back of her hand, drying sweat mixed with tears that perhaps no one else saw. But Marcus saw them, and something inside him broke into 1,000 pieces. He couldn't stay there just watching. He couldn't return to his penthouse and pretend he hadn't seen anything. Marcus started the SUV and drove away from the corner before Claire could see him. He drove through the night streets of the city without a fixed destination, his hands gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. His mind was a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts. How was it possible that a woman worked from 6 in the morning until past midnight just to survive? How was it possible that the salary he paid her, which seemed fair and generous to him, wasn't enough to cover her basic needs? The answer was obvious but brutal. Because America was full of Claires, millions of people who worked 2 or 3 jobs just to pay for medicines, food, rent. Invisible people who kept the homes of the rich running, the offices of executives, the streets of cities. People who smiled because they had no other option. Marcus arrived at his penthouse past midnight. He sat in the garage for several minutes, looking at the impeccable walls that Claire cleaned every day. Tomorrow she would arrive at 6 as always, and he could no longer ignore the truth. He had to talk to her, though he didn't know what the hell he was going to say. Marcus barely slept that night. He tossed and turned in bed while his mind replayed over and over the image of Claire under that street lamp, selling flowers with tired hands. He got up at 5 in the morning, something he hadn't done since his early years as an entrepreneur. He showered, dressed, and went down to the kitchen much earlier than usual. He prepared coffee and sat down to wait. The clock showed 5:40 when he heard the doorbell at the service entrance. His heart beat faster. He walked to the back door and opened it personally, something he never did. Claire was on the other side with her impeccable uniform and that polite smile as always. But when her eyes met Marcus's, something changed in her expression. A shadow of surprise crossed her face. "Good morning, Mr. Marcus," she said with a soft, almost timid voice. He noticed the deep, dark circles more marked than ever. He noticed how her hands tightly gripped the strap of her worn bag. He noticed the barely disguised fear in her gaze. Before Marcus could articulate a word, Claire took a step forward urgently. "Mr. Marcus, I need to talk to you," she said quickly, her voice breaking slightly. Her eyes shone with contained tears. I know that you saw me last night." The words came out like a painful confession. Marcus felt a knot in his throat. Of course she had seen him. The black SUV parked in front of the corner wasn't exactly discreet. "Sir, I can explain," Claire continued, now with words stumbling over each other. "I didn't want to disrespect you. I didn't want you to think your work isn't enough for me. It's just that my mom is sick and needs very expensive medicines. My siblings are still studying and I'm the only one who can support them. The money you pay me is fair. It is. But it's not enough for everything, and I didn't want to ask you for more because you've already been very good to me." Her voice trembled more and more. Tears began to roll down her cheeks. "Please don't fire me. I promise I'll keep arriving early. I promise my other job won't affect my duties here. Please." Marcus stood paralyzed, watching that proud and strong woman crumble before him. Claire, who had always been so discreet, so reserved, was now there begging to keep a job that was slowly killing her. She thought he was upset. She thought he had followed her to fire her. She thought her double effort was a reason for shame and not admiration. The weight of that reality fell on Marcus like a ton of bricks. For 3 years he had been a good employer according to basic standards. He paid on time, gave legal benefits, had never been disrespectful, but that was the minimum. He had never taken the trouble to really know the person who worked in his home. He had never asked about her family, her dreams, her fears. He had seen her as an efficient employee and nothing more. And now she was there apologizing for working herself to exhaustion just to survive. The shame Marcus felt at that moment was worse than any business failure he had experienced in his life. Marcus raised his hands in a slow, almost pleading gesture. "Claire, wait," he said with a firm but gentle voice. "Please don't cry. I didn't come here to fire you." She looked at him with red eyes, confused, not understanding. Marcus took a deep breath before continuing. The words he had rehearsed all night suddenly seemed insufficient, but he had to say them anyway. "I'm not disappointed in you at all. I'm ashamed of myself." His voice broke slightly as he pronounced those last words. Claire blinked in surprise. "I'm ashamed because I never asked if you were okay, because I saw you arrive tired every morning for months and I never bothered to find out why, because I pay you a salary that seems fair to me, but that clearly isn't enough for you to live with dignity." He paused, searching for the right words. "You don't owe me any explanation, Claire. I'm the one who owes you an apology for having been so blind." The silence that followed was dense and charged with emotions that neither of them knew how to handle. Claire wiped her tears with the back of her hand, still not fully understanding what was happening. "You're not angry?" she asked in a small voice. Marcus shook his head, feeling a lump in his throat that threatened to break him. "Angry isn't the word. I'm impressed, amazed. You work from 6 in the morning here, then go sell flowers until past midnight. And you still arrive punctually the next morning with a smile on your face. That's not normal, Claire. That's heroic. She looked down, uncomfortable with the praise. I'm not a hero, Mr. Marcus. I just do what I have to do. Marcus took a step toward her, maintaining a respectful distance. And that's exactly the problem, that you have to do all that alone. That you have to sacrifice your health, your rest, your entire life just so your family can eat. That's not right. Claire looked up, and for the first time in 3 years, Marcus saw something different in her eyes. Hope mixed with fear of daring to believe it. What are you going to do? She whispered. Marcus smiled for the first time in days, a genuine smile he hadn't felt in a long time. I'm going to start by doing what I should have done from the beginning. Listen to you. Those words changed something in the air between Marcus and Claire. She agreed to come into the kitchen, still nervous, still not fully understanding what was happening. Marcus prepared her a cup of coffee and sat across from her at the breakfast bar, something that completely broke the employer-employee dynamic they had maintained for 3 years. During the next hour, Claire spoke, at first with a trembling voice and measured words, as if each phrase could be used against her. But little by little, as Marcus listened without interrupting, without judging, without offering immediate solutions, she began to open up. She told him about her mother, a woman of 64 who had worked her entire life as a seamstress until arthritis took away her ability to hold a needle. She spoke of her 2 younger siblings, James, 21, who was studying computer programming at a community college, and Sarah, 18, who was in her last year of high school and dreamed of becoming a nurse. Claire had assumed the role of father and mother since their own father had abandoned them more than 12 years ago. Everything fell on her shoulders. Claire's words painted a portrait of sacrifice that Marcus had never imagined. She worked at his penthouse from 6 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon. Then she took 2 buses to get to her home on the south side, a journey of almost 2 hours crossing the entire city. She prepared dinner for her family, helped Sarah with homework, gave her mom her medicines, and after everyone fell asleep, she went out to sell flowers from 8 at night until past midnight. She slept 4 hours if she was lucky. On weekends, she made double the bouquets because there were more customers. There was no rest, no respite, only an endless cycle of work and more work that slowly consumed her. Sometimes I wonder how long I can keep going like this, Claire confessed with her gaze lost in her coffee cup. But then I see James learning to code with so much passion, or Sarah reading her nursing books late into the night, or my mom smiling when I tell her something funny, and I tell myself it's worth it, that everything is worth it if they can have a better life than mine. Marcus listened in silence, feeling how each of Claire's words showed him a world that had always existed beside him, but that he had been too blind to see. When she finished speaking, he remained quiet for several seconds, processing everything he had heard. How much do you make with the flowers? He finally asked. Claire hesitated before answering. It depends on the night. On a good night, I can make $60 or $70. On a bad one, barely $30. Marcus did quick mental calculations. That meant Claire worked between 4 and 5 additional hours each night for an amount that for him was less than what he spent on a business lunch. The disproportion was obscene. What if I increase your salary? He proposed. Claire shook her head immediately. I can't accept that, Mr. Marcus. You already pay me well. I don't want your pity. The word pity fell between them like a heavy stone. Marcus understood then that this wasn't just about money. It was about dignity, about pride, about a woman who had fought her entire life without asking anyone for anything. Marcus changed his strategy. He couldn't just give her more money if she wasn't going to accept it out of pride. He needed another way to help that respected her dignity. But first, he needed to better understand her world. Claire, can I ask you something? He said in an almost timid tone. She looked at him surprised. Of course, sir. Marcus took a breath before continuing. Tonight, can I come buy some flowers from you? I want to try your work. I want to know that other side of your life. Claire stiffened. Why would you want to do that? Marcus smiled sincerely. Because I've spent 3 years sharing this home with you, and I just realized I don't know you at all. And because frankly, I'm dying of curiosity to see if your flowers are as beautiful as everyone says. That last phrase drew a genuine smile from Claire, the first that Marcus had seen from her without that filter of forced politeness. It was a real smile, a bit shy, but real. All right, she finally accepted. But don't come in your fancy SUV. You'll scare away my customers. Marcus laughed, an honest laugh he hadn't felt in years. Deal, I'll go discreetly. That night, Marcus parked his SUV several blocks from the corner and walked to Claire's flower cart. She was setting up her work area when she saw him arrive. For a moment, she seemed nervous again, but Marcus simply approached like any customer. Good evening, miss. What do you recommend? Claire played along with the joke. The roses are the most popular. The mixed bouquets are my specialty. Marcus ordered 3 of each. While she prepared the order, they began to talk. This time without the formality of the penthouse, without the weight of social hierarchy. Just 2 people sharing a moment under the city lights. Marcus tried the bouquets, and his expression of genuine surprise made Claire laugh. They're incredible, he said, smelling the flowers. Who taught you to arrange them like this? She smiled with nostalgia. My grandmother. She had a flower stand at the farmer's market many years ago. She said beautiful flowers don't need to be expensive, they just need to be made with love. Marcus nodded, admiring each bloom. He stayed there for an hour, talking between customer and customer, learning stories about Claire's family, listening to her dreams and fears. And for the first time in years, he felt he was connecting with something real, something his money had never been able to buy. Marcus's visits to the flower cart became a routine over the following weeks. He arrived between 9 and 10 at night, ordered his flowers, and stayed talking with Claire between customer and customer. He learned the names of the neighboring vendors, Mrs. Rosa, who sold street tacos, Mr. Thomas, who had a hot dog stand, young David, who sold handmade jewelry. They all received him with the natural distrust towards someone who clearly didn't belong to that world. But Marcus's constant presence and his genuine treatment gradually broke down those barriers. One night, Mr. Thomas offered him a hot dog with everything on it. So you can lose that uptown look, he joked. Marcus accepted with a smile, and from then on the vendors greeted him with familiarity. Claire watched these interactions with a mixture of amazement and tenderness. She saw that millionaire executive sitting on a plastic chair, holding flower bouquets with his hands, laughing with people who would never set foot in his penthouse, and something in her heart began to soften. But Marcus knew that nightly conversations weren't enough. Claire was still working 16 hours a day, and that wasn't sustainable. One Friday morning, after she finished cleaning the kitchen, Marcus asked her to sit down. Claire, we need to talk about your salary. He began with a serious but kind tone. She tensed immediately. Mr. Marcus, I already told you I can't accept. He raised his hand, interrupting her gently. Listen to me first, please. I've been reviewing all my employees' salaries, and I realized I haven't made adjustments for inflation in 3 years. That's not fair to anyone, especially to you who are so dedicated. He took an envelope from his jacket pocket. Starting this month, your salary increases by 45%. And before you protest, this isn't charity, it's justice. It's what I should have done a long time ago. Claire opened her mouth to object, but Marcus continued. Additionally, I'm going to adjust your hours. Instead of working from 6 to 4, you'll work from 8 to 3. That will give you more time to rest between this job and your flower cart. Tears began to form in Claire's eyes. Claire took the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was the check with the new salary and a handwritten note that said, "For all the work you do that I never valued as you deserve. Thank you for your dedication." She read the words over and over, as if she couldn't believe they were real. I don't know what to say, she whispered with a broken voice. Marcus smiled warmly. You don't have to say anything. Just please take better care of yourself. I don't want you to get sick from working so much. There was a silence charged with emotions between them both. Then Claire did something that surprised Marcus. She stood up and gave him a quick but sincere hug. Thank you, she said simply. Thank you for seeing me. When they separated, both had tears in their eyes. Marcus had never felt as much satisfaction signing a check as he felt at that moment. It wasn't the amount of money that mattered. It was the meaning behind that gesture. It was the possibility of making a real difference in someone's life. It was remembering that money only had value when used for something bigger than oneself. But the gesture that moved Claire the most came a week later. It was Saturday night and Marcus arrived at the flower cart with an unusual proposal. Claire, I want to learn to arrange flowers, he announced with a mischievous smile. She looked at him as if he had lost his mind. You, arrange flowers? Marcus nodded enthusiastically. Yes. If I'm going to continue being your most frequent customer, I should at least know how to appreciate the art behind the work. Claire laughed, a genuine and joyful laugh that lit up her tired face. All right, but I warn you it's not as easy as it looks. For the next few hours, Marcus learned to cut stems at the right angle without crushing them, to arrange flowers by height and color to create visual balance, to wrap bouquets in paper without damaging the petals, to prepare mixed arrangements with the perfect harmony between texture and fragrance. He pricked his fingers twice, got water all over his expensive shirt, cut the stems so unevenly that Claire had to redo them between laughs. But he didn't give up. And when he finally managed to create a decent bouquet, the expression of pride on his face made Claire feel something warm and unfamiliar in her chest. The next surprise came when Marcus asked to meet Claire's family. You've told me so much about them that I feel like I already know them. I'd like to say hello if you don't mind. Claire hesitated at first, embarrassed to show her humble home to a man accustomed to luxury. But the sincerity in Marcus's eyes convinced her. One Sunday afternoon, he arrived at Claire's house on the south side. It was a small 3-bedroom apartment in a building with concrete walls and vinyl floors, but it was impeccably clean and decorated with the love that only a true home can have. Claire's mom, Mrs. Helen, received him with the characteristic hospitality of American mothers. Come in, sir." "Excuse the mess," she said, though there was no visible mess. James was in the small living room fixing an old laptop, and Sarah was studying at the dining table surrounded by books and notebooks. When they saw Marcus enter, both froze. Claire had told them about her employer who visited the flower cart, but seeing him there in person was something else entirely. Marcus greeted each one with genuine interest, and at that moment, something extraordinary began to happen. If you're connecting with this story and want to see more content that reminds us to look beyond our own bubbles, hit that subscribe button and join a community that believes in seeing the humanity in everyone around us. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. James, after overcoming the initial surprise, began talking to him enthusiastically about computer programming. He showed him the laptop he was repairing and explained with passion the problems with the operating system. Marcus listened fascinated, asking questions that demonstrated real interest and not just courtesy. "And what do you plan to do when you finish your studies?" he asked. James shrugged. "I'd like to have my own tech repair business someday, but that costs a lot of money. For now, I just want to get a job at some big company." His eyes shone with a dream that seemed too distant. Sarah, on the other hand, was more reserved. She stayed glued to her books until Marcus noticed she was reading The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. "That's one of my favorite books," he commented, sitting near her. "What do you think of it so far?" Sarah's eyes lit up, and she began talking about medical ethics and racial justice with an intelligence that pleasantly surprised Marcus. They talked for half an hour about healthcare, about her dreams of Sarah becoming a nurse who could make a difference in underserved communities. Claire watched them from the kitchen with her heart swelling with emotion. Mrs. Helen insisted that Marcus stay for dinner. "It's not much, but it's made with love," she said while serving a pot roast with mashed potatoes and green beans. Marcus accepted delightedly and sat at the table with the whole family. The meal was simple but delicious, prepared with that flavor that only grandmothers and mothers achieve. During the meal, Marcus heard family stories. Mrs. Helen told him about her years as a seamstress, about how she made wedding dresses and prom gowns with her own hands. "I still have my sewing machine, though I can barely use it now because of the arthritis," she said with nostalgia. James shared anecdotes from his classes at the community college about systems that seemed impossible to fix but that he managed to repair. Sarah talked about her favorite teachers and how she would like to inspire other students as she had been inspired. Claire remained mostly silent, watching with amazement as that important man sat at her humble table sharing laughs with her family as if it were the most natural thing in the world, as if there were no difference between his downtown penthouse and this modest apartment on the south side. After dinner, while Sarah and James cleared the table, Mrs. Helen asked Marcus to accompany her to the small balcony. They sat in 2 folding chairs under a hanging basket of petunias that gave shade to the space. "Mr. Marcus," Mrs. Helen began with a soft but firm voice, "I want to thank you for everything you've done for my daughter." Marcus was about to protest, but she raised her hand. "Let me finish. Claire doesn't tell me much because she doesn't want to worry me, but a mother always knows. I know she's worked like a pack mule for years to support us. I know she sacrificed her own dreams for us. And I know that you've been the first person in a long time who sees her as something more than an employee." Mrs. Helen's eyes moistened. "I've seen her different these last few weeks. She comes home less tired, smiles more, talks about you with a sparkle in her eyes that I hadn't seen since many years ago. She made a significant pause. I don't know what's happening between you two, and it's not my place to interfere, but I want you to know something. My daughter is an extraordinary woman. Any man would be fortunate to have her in his life. Mrs. Helen's words hit Marcus with the force of a revelation. He wasn't foolish. He had felt the connection growing between him and Claire over the last few weeks, the moments shared at the flower cart, the conversations that extended longer than necessary, the glances that lasted a second longer than appropriate, the way his heart beat faster when she entered a room. But he had been denying it, convincing himself it was just gratitude, admiration, respect. Mrs. Helen was forcing him to face what he had been avoiding. He was falling in love with Claire. A 45-year-old man, divorced, successful CEO, was falling in love with his housekeeper. Society would say it was inappropriate. His business partners would raise their eyebrows. People would murmur about class differences and economic conveniences. But at that moment, sitting on that humble balcony under the petunias, Marcus realized something fundamental. He didn't care what people said. For the first time in a decade, his heart was feeling something real, something genuine, something that had no price. Mrs. Helen, Marcus responded with an emotional voice. Your daughter is indeed an extraordinary woman, and I'm the fortunate one to have really met her. Mrs. Helen smiled with wisdom. Take care of her, Mr. Marcus. She suffered a lot. She deserves to be happy. Marcus nodded, making a silent promise. When they returned inside, Claire was helping Sarah with a math assignment. Marcus observed the scene with tenderness. Claire patiently explaining a problem while Sarah took notes in her notebook. James had returned to his laptop on the balcony. The house was full of that warmth that only exists in homes where love compensates for the lack of luxury. Marcus said goodbye to everyone with sincere hugs. Come back whenever you want, Mrs. Helen said. This is your home. When Marcus left, Claire accompanied him to the door. Thank you for coming, she said softly. It means a lot to them. To me. Marcus looked into her eyes, those tired eyes that now shone with something different. Thank you for letting me into your world, he responded sincerely. They stood there for a moment that seemed eternal, with 1,000 unspoken words floating in the air between them. And Mrs. Helen, watching from the window, smiled because she knew exactly what she was seeing bloom. The following weeks were a delicate dance of approaches and retreats, of glances that lasted too long and words that remained unsaid. Marcus continued visiting the flower cart, but now there was something different in the air. Claire noticed it in the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't noticing, in how their hands brushed accidentally when she handed him the bouquets, in the tone of his voice when he asked how her day had been. Marcus also felt the change. He found himself thinking about her constantly. During important meetings, while reviewing contracts, on those lonely nights in his empty penthouse, he surprised himself looking for excuses to extend their nightly conversations, to stay 5 more minutes at the corner, to hear one more story about her childhood, her dreams, her fears. But both maintained a respectful distance, aware of the invisible barriers that separated their worlds. Until one rainy October night, everything changed. It was close to 10 at night when it started to rain with that force characteristic of Midwestern storms. Marcus had just arrived at the cart when the first drops began to fall. In a matter of minutes, it turned into a deluge. The few customers there ran to take shelter under the awnings of nearby stores. Claire tried to cover her flowers with plastic tarps while the rain soaked her completely. Marcus ran to help her without thinking about his expensive suit or his Italian leather shoes. Together, they secured the merchandise and stored what they could in plastic bins. When they finished, both were completely soaked, shivering from cold under the only tarp that remained stretched over the cart. Claire laughed first, a nervous and joyful laugh at the absurdity of the situation. Marcus followed her, and soon both were laughing like children in the rain. Their bodies were close, too close. Claire's warmth penetrated through the wet fabric of her clothes. Marcus could see the drops of water sliding down her face. And in that moment, with the rain pounding the plastic above their heads and the city disappearing in the storm, something broke between them. Claire, Marcus whispered in a hoarse voice. She looked up and their eyes met. There was no more polite smile or professional distance, only truth in that gaze. I need to tell you something and I don't know how to do it without sounding completely crazy. Claire swallowed, her heart beating so hard she thought he could hear it. Tell me, she responded in a whisper barely audible over the noise of the rain. Marcus took a breath, gathering courage. I've spent the last 10 years of my life feeling like I was dead inside, working non-stop to avoid thinking, living in that penthouse, completely alone, convinced I would never feel anything real again. He paused, his eyes never leaving hers. And then I saw you under that street lamp selling flowers, and something inside me woke up, something I thought was lost forever. His hand moved slowly toward Claire's face, brushing away a strand of wet hair. You make me feel alive again. You make me want to be a better person. You make me remember that life is more than money and contracts and empty homes. Claire felt tears mixing with the rain on her face. Her whole life had been a constant battle to survive, to keep her family afloat. She had given up her own dreams, her own happiness, convinced that her only function was to sacrifice herself for others. She had never allowed herself to think she deserved love, that she deserved to be seen, that she deserved something more than work and more work. But this man was looking at her as if she were the most valuable thing in the world. Not out of pity, not out of charity, but because he genuinely saw her. Marcus, she said with a trembling voice, using his name without the mister for the first time. I felt something too, but I'm afraid. He took a step closer. Afraid of what? Claire looked down. Afraid this isn't real. Afraid that one day you'll wake up and realize we're too different. Afraid that people will think I'm only with you for your money. Afraid that... Her voice broke. Marcus gently lifted her chin with his fingers. Afraid of being happy, he completed tenderly. She nodded, tears flowing freely. I've spent so much time taking care of others that I forgot how to take care of myself. Marcus brought his forehead to hers, their breaths mixing in the small space between them. Then let me take care of you. Let me show you this is real. I don't care what people say. I don't care about the differences. I only care about you. Claire closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of his words wrap around her tired heart. I'm not anyone special, Marcus. I'm just a woman who sells flowers and cleans homes. He smiled with infinite tenderness. You're the most extraordinary woman I've met. You're strong, dedicated, generous, brave. You've sacrificed everything for your family without losing your smile. You've worked to exhaustion without losing your dignity. You're everything I'm not and everything I need in my life. Slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, Marcus shortened the distance between them. When their lips finally met, it was as if the world disappeared. There was no more rain, no corner, no class differences. Only two souls finding each other after years of loneliness. The kiss was sweet and deep, charged with all the words they hadn't said, with all the emotions they had been containing. When they separated, both were smiling with tears in their eyes, and at that moment, they knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The relationship between Marcus and Claire flourished with the naturalness of something that had always been destined to happen. At first, they were discreet, aware that the world doesn't always understand love that crosses social barriers. Claire continued arriving to work at the penthouse, but now there was a new light in her eyes. Marcus continued visiting the flower cart, but now he stayed until she closed and walked her home. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. He told her about his ex-wife, about the pain he had never fully processed, about how he had built walls around his heart. She told him about her absent father, about the weight of being responsible for keeping her family together, about the dreams she had buried out of necessity. They shared their vulnerabilities without fear of judgment. They shared their fears without shame. And in that sharing, they found healing for wounds they had carried for too long. It was a mature love built on mutual respect and genuine admiration. It wasn't the rushed romance of youth, but the deep connection of two people who had lived enough to know what was truly valuable. Sundays became Marcus's favorite day. He arrived early at Claire's house on the south side and spent the whole day with her and her family. He helped James with programming projects, though his knowledge of code was practically nil. He listened to Sarah read her nursing essays and offered honest feedback. He talked with Mrs. Helen about her life, her memories, her hopes for her children. He learned to play cards with the neighbors in the courtyard. He tried the different versions of chili that each family prepared with pride. He got used to the constant noise of the building, children playing, music coming from windows, vendors announcing their products. It was a world completely opposite to his silent and orderly penthouse, and yet he felt more at home there than anywhere else. Claire watched him adapt to her life with amazement. She saw this powerful man sit on the floor to play with the neighborhood children, saw him eat from chipped plates without any complaint, saw him laugh with people who had nothing to offer him except their genuine friendship. And her love for him grew every day. But not everything was easy. There were moments of tension when the realities of their different worlds collided. One night, Marcus invited her to an important business dinner at an elegant restaurant downtown. Claire accepted nervously, aware that it would be the first time she entered his social world. She put on her best dress, a simple navy dress she had bought years ago for a wedding. When she arrived at the restaurant and saw the other women with their designer dresses and expensive jewelry, she felt she didn't belong there. During dinner, Marcus's partners made subtly condescending questions about her work, about her family, about how she had met Marcus. She responded with dignity, but felt the judging looks, the barely disguised whispers. Marcus noticed her discomfort and knew he had made a mistake exposing her to that environment without preparing her. When they left the restaurant, Claire was quiet. "I'm sorry," Marcus said, taking her hand. "I shouldn't have put you in that situation." She shook her head. "Don't apologize. I knew this wouldn't be easy. I just need time to adjust." But that night, alone in her home, she cried, wondering if they could really make such an unequal relationship work. Marcus also faced his own battle. Some of his partners began making comments about his relationship with Claire. "Are you sure about what you're doing?" one of his close friends asked him during a lunch. "People are going to talk. They're going to say she's using you for your money." Marcus felt rage rise in his throat. "And what if they talk? Claire is the most honest and hardworking woman I know. She hasn't asked me for anything. In fact, I had to convince her to accept a fair raise." His friend raised his hands in a gesture of peace. "I'm just looking out for you. You know how this world is." Marcus took a deep breath. "Yes, I know how this world is. That's why I want to be with someone who comes from a different world. Someone who reminds me what's truly important." That conversation made Marcus reflect on what he really wanted. He could continue pleasing the society around him, maintaining appearances, relating only to people from his same circle. Or he could choose genuine happiness, even if that meant facing judgments and criticism. The decision was surprisingly easy. He chose Claire. He chose real love over social approval, and that choice freed him from chains he didn't know he was wearing. One November afternoon, 6 months after that first kiss in the rain, Marcus made an important decision. He talked to James about his plans to open a tech repair business and offered him the initial capital as an investment, not as a gift. "You'll be my partner," he told him. "I'll put in the money. You put in the knowledge and work. We'll split the profits equally." James couldn't believe what he was hearing. His dream of years suddenly became possible. With Sarah, he had another significant conversation. He offered to pay for her entire nursing education when she finished high school. "I only ask one thing of you," he said, "that you study what truly passionate you and that someday you help other students like you." Sarah hugged Marcus, crying with gratitude. For Mrs. Helen, he arranged specialized medical treatment that significantly improved her arthritis. And for Claire, most important of all, he proposed something that would change their lives forever. One afternoon, after closing the flower cart, he knelt before her on that corner that had been witness to their transformation. "Claire, I know this is fast. I know we still have a lot to work out. But I also know I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" Claire looked at that simple ring in his hands. She looked at Marcus's eyes full of love and knew her answer. "Yes," she whispered with tears of happiness. 1,000 times yes. The news of the engagement spread quickly through the neighborhood and Marcus's circle. Reactions were varied as expected. Mrs. Helen cried with joy, hugging her daughter for long minutes. James and Sarah celebrated, knowing their sister would finally have the happiness she so deserved. The neighbors from the corner organized a small impromptu party with music and shared food. But in Marcus's world, there were murmurs and disapproving looks. Some partners stopped inviting him to social events. Former friends openly questioned his decision. However, Marcus discovered something liberating. He didn't care. For the first time in his adult life, he was making a decision based solely on what his heart wanted and not on what society expected of him. Claire also faced her own demons. She had to learn to accept that she deserved to be happy without feeling guilty, that receiving help didn't make her weak but human, that loving Marcus didn't mean abandoning her family but expanding her capacity to love. They were months of adjustments and deep conversations where both had to confront years of established patterns. The wedding was celebrated 3 months later in an intimate ceremony that perfectly reflected who they were as a couple. It wasn't in a luxurious hall or an imposing church. It was on the same corner where Claire had sold flowers for years, decorated with colored lights and simple flowers. Both families attended, Claire's blood family and the family of neighbors and customers who had become an essential part of her life. On Marcus's side, there were fewer people than there would have been years ago. But those who were there were the ones who truly mattered. Loyal employees who had accompanied him for years, the few partners who understood his decision, and a handful of true friends who genuinely celebrated his happiness. The ceremony was officiated by the neighborhood pastor who had known Claire since she was a child. When Marcus saw Claire walking toward him in a simple but beautiful white dress with her mother holding her arm and tears of happiness in her eyes, he knew he had made the right decision. It wasn't the wedding society expected from the successful CEO, but it was perfect for them. It was authentic, it was real, it was the beginning of something beautiful. After the wedding, both their lives began to transform in ways neither had fully anticipated. Claire moved into the penthouse, but not as an employee, but as mistress of the house. At first, it was difficult for her to adapt to living in such a large space, to having domestic help instead of being the one who cleaned. There were awkward moments when former employees didn't know how to treat her now that she was the lady of the house. But Claire handled each situation with the same grace and humility that had always characterized her. She treated everyone with respect and kindness, never forgetting where she came from. Marcus watched fascinated as she transformed that cold and empty house into a real home. Claire filled the spaces with plants, with family photographs, with the aroma of homemade food cooking in the kitchen. She invited her family to visit regularly. On Sundays, the penthouse filled with laughter, with music, with life. James came to dinner and talked about the advances in his repair shop that was already operating with 5 employees. Sarah arrived loaded with books and enthusiastically shared what she was learning in her first semester of nursing school. Mrs. Helen sat in the garden enjoying the sun on her face. But the most significant change came one spring afternoon, 8 months after the wedding. Claire and Marcus were sitting on the penthouse terrace watching the sunset when she took his hand. "I have to tell you something," she began with a soft voice. Marcus looked at her attentively. "What's wrong, my love?" Claire took a deep breath before continuing. "I've been thinking a lot about the flower cart." Marcus nodded. She had continued going some nights, not out of economic necessity, but because she enjoyed arranging flowers, because she missed the connection with people. "What have you been thinking?" he asked. Claire looked toward the horizon before answering. "I think it's time to close it." Marcus was surprised. He knew how important that card had been to her, how much it represented of her history, of her struggle. "Are you sure? You don't have to do it for me. You know I support any decision you make." She smiled calmly. "I know, and precisely because of that I can make this decision. I don't need to sell flowers to survive anymore. I don't need to work to exhaustion to support my family. I can choose. And I choose to close that chapter of my life not out of obligation, but because I'm ready to start a new one." The night Claire closed her flower cart for the last time was emotional. The neighbors from the corner came to say goodbye. Mrs. Rosa gave her tacos with extra salsa and cheese. Mr. Thomas gave her a hot dog with everything. Young David brought her a handmade bracelet. Each one shared a story of how Claire's flowers had fed them not just visually but spiritually during difficult years. "You always had a smile, even when we knew you were tired," an elderly woman said. "Your flowers reminded us there was kindness in the world." Claire hugged each one, thanking them for having accompanied her on that journey. When she stored the last bucket, cleaned her table for the last time, and folded the plastic tablecloth, she felt a mixture of nostalgia and liberation. She was closing a stage of sacrifice and opening one of choice. Marcus was there waiting with the car. He helped her load the things, and before leaving, both looked back one last time. That small space under the street lamp had been the place where their lives had crossed, where he had really seen her for the first time, where she had learned she deserved more than just surviving. And now together they were heading toward a future they had built with love, respect, and the certainty that the best stories begin when you least expect them. 1 year after closing the flower cart, Marcus and Claire's life had found a beautiful balance. The penthouse, which had once been a symbol of Marcus's loneliness, was now a home full of life and love. Claire had decided to use her floral experience in a different way. She began teaching free flower arranging classes to women from her old neighborhood who wanted to learn a trade. Every Saturday, the penthouse kitchen filled with laughter, stories, and the aroma of fresh flowers. Marcus watched from afar with pride as his wife empowered other women, sharing not just techniques but hope. He had also changed. His company continued to be successful, but now he worked fewer hours and dedicated more time to what really mattered. He established a scholarship program for low-income students through his company. He improved the salaries and working conditions of all his employees. He had realized that true success wasn't measured in bank accounts, but in lives positively touched. Claire had transformed him into a better man, more conscious, more human. James had prospered incredibly with his tech repair business. What began as a small space with basic equipment was now a growing business that employed 12 people. He handled daily operations while Marcus taught him about administration and finances. It was a genuine partnership where both contributed value. James had started saving to buy his own house and was dating a young software engineer he had met at a tech conference. The transformation from shy kid to confident entrepreneur filled the whole family with pride. Sarah was in her second year of nursing school, studying pediatric nursing with excellent grades. She had begun volunteering at a free clinic on weekends. Her dream of being a nurse was taking beautiful shape. She wrote brilliant essays about healthcare equity and social determinants of health that Marcus read with admiration. Mrs. Helen, with her improved arthritis thanks to medical treatment, had returned to sewing. Now she made quilts and tablecloths that she sold at craft fairs. More than the money, she enjoyed feeling useful and creative again. She visited the penthouse 3 times a week and had become the grandmother everyone adored. One Sunday afternoon, the whole family was gathered in the penthouse garden celebrating Mrs. Helen's birthday. There was cake, barbecue that Claire had prepared with James's help, and a jazz band that Marcos had hired as a surprise. Neighborhood children Claire had invited ran through the garden chasing bubbles. Sarah read poetry aloud for anyone who wanted to listen. James showed photos of his latest tech project on his phone. Mrs. Helen sat in a comfortable chair, observing the scene with tears of happiness in her eyes. Marcus approached her and sat beside her. "Are you happy, Mrs. Helen?" he asked affectionately. She took his hand and squeezed it tightly. "More than words can express, son. 2 years ago, my biggest worry was that Claire was killing herself working and that I couldn't do anything to help her. I was afraid of dying without seeing her happy. And now look at her." They both turned to see Claire, who was laughing while putting cake frosting on Marcus's nose. "You've made her the happiest woman in the world. And not just that, you gave her a bigger family. You gave all of us a better life without taking away our dignity." Marcus felt a lump in his throat. "Mrs. Helen, it was Claire who saved me. I was living, but I wasn't alive. I had all the money in the world, but no reason to get up every morning. She taught me that true wealth is in human connections, in love, in family. She taught me to see beyond my bubble of privilege. She taught me that success without purpose is empty." He paused, looking at his wife with infinite love. "Every day I thank God for making me leave that meeting late that night, for making me take that different route, for giving me the opportunity to see Claire under that street lamp selling flowers, because that moment changed my life forever." Mrs. Helen smiled with wisdom. "Sometimes God puts us on the right path in the most unexpected ways. You two were destined to find each other. 2 lonely souls who needed healing and healed each other." Marcus nodded, knowing those words were profoundly true. Claire had healed him from his pain and loneliness, and he had given her the opportunity to stop sacrificing herself and start living fully. As night fell, after all the guests had left, Marcus and Claire were alone on the terrace watching the stars. He hugged her from behind, and she leaned on his chest. "Are you happy?" Marcus whispered in her ear. Claire smiled in the darkness. "Happier than I ever imagined I could be. There are days when I wake up and think this is a dream, that at any moment I'm going to wake up in my bed on the south side with the alarm going off at 5 in the morning to go sell flowers." Marcus hugged her tighter. "This is real, my love, and it's going to keep being real every day for the rest of our lives." They remained like that for a long while in silence, enjoying the peace they had built together. 2 people from completely different worlds who had found in each other exactly what they needed. A CEO who learned that true luxury is having someone who loves you for who you are and not for what you have. A hard-working woman who learned she deserved to be loved, cared for, and happy. Their story wasn't a fairy tale where the prince rescues the maiden. It was better than that. It was a real story where 2 people rescued each other, where love overcame social barriers, where dignity and respect were the foundation of something beautiful and lasting. If this story touched your heart, we hope you'll take a moment to share your own experiences in the comments below. Have you ever had someone see you, really see you, when you felt invisible? Have you witnessed love that defied expectations? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Subscribe to join our community of people who believe in the transformative power of genuine human connection. And let's continue these conversations that remind us what truly matters in life. The story of Marcus and Claire reminds us that true love knows no social or economic borders. It teaches us that sometimes the most valuable people are right in front of us, but we don't see them because we're too busy with our own lives. It shows us that it's never too late to open your heart, to see beyond appearances, to choose love above social conventions. True wealth isn't measured in money, but in the people we love and who love us back. Sometimes God puts in our path exactly what we need at the precise moment, even if we don't recognize it immediately. May this story inspire you to value the people who work beside you, to see with eyes of love and not judgment, to remember that everyone deserves dignity and respect regardless of social position. May God bless your life with genuine love. May He illuminate your path with people who see your true value. And may He grant you the wisdom to recognize blessings when they arrive in your life disguised in unexpected ways. Amen.